people may not be aware that Mahatma Gandhi lived for many years in Johannesburg, South Africa. Many people may also not be aware of his great fondness for the City of Gold, as it's always been known, as evidence in his writing of A Farewell to Johannesburg. I'm very touched by what Gandhi said about Johannesburg, as I myself was privileged to live in that bustling city for most of my life. I was never happier than when I lived in Johannesburg, and I have lived in many places in 6 different countries over the years. Johannesburg is a city with an untold energy that seems unique to the place that sprawls across the country's highveld. As a young girl, I loved spending my holidays there and being driven around a city filled with gold mine dumps that literally shimmered golden during sunsets. Since I can remember, it's a place where you can have everything and anything you want. Johannesburg was barely 20 years old when Gandhi lived there back in the early 1900s. Yet, the gold mining town was already the fastest growing city in the world at the time. That breathless desire for change and evolution has never stopped shaping Johannesburg ever since. Today, it's a city resplendent with fantastic freeways and world-class shopping centers, restaurants, cafes, and hotels. It also has some of the most lovely and harmonious suburbs of any major city, not to mention the fact that no other city in the world has more trees than does Johannesburg. I've left and gone back a few times to Johannesburg, and always my heart is there. It's true that Johannesburg is not a tourist city. It really isn't, and the locals don't care anyway. That honor is left to beautiful Cape Town, which is scenically unmatched and beautiful. Perhaps it's something in the dry, brittle highveld here, or something about the people. But Johannesburg is unique in more ways than one. It's undefinable, yet palpable. And I've known people from New York City, Paris, London, and other parts of the world who have commented on its unique energy and life. I have no doubt it's what appealed so much to Gandhi all those years ago, when the city was a lot smaller, but no doubt as vibrant and a little crazy. I can only hope for the very best for my beloved Johannesburg, troubled as it is today. May it yet again pull through its social and other problems, as it deserves to be safe and well. The City of Gold, Joburg, Josie, Egoli, call it what you want. It remains a city blessed with the love and longing of Mahatma Gandhi himself. So with that, I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy excerpts from Mahatma Gandhi's Farewell to Johannesburg. Excerpts of the farewell speech at Johannesburg. At Johannesburg, Mr. Gandhi was the recipient of numerous addresses from Hindus, Parsis, Mohammedans, Europeans, and other important communities. Indeed, every class of people and every important association presented a separate address. Mr. Gandhi made a touching reply to them. Johannesburg was not a new place to him. He saw many friendly faces there, many who had worked with him in many struggles in Johannesburg. He had gone through much in life. A great deal of depression and sorrow had been his lot. But he had also learned during all those years to love Johannesburg, even though it was a mining camp. It was in Johannesburg that he had found his most precious friends. It was in Johannesburg that the foundation for the great struggle of passive resistance was laid in September of 1906. It was in Johannesburg that he had found a friend, a guide and a biographer in the late Mr. Doak. It was in Johannesburg that he had found in Mrs. Doak a loving sister who had nursed him back to life when he had been assaulted by a countryman who had misunderstood his mission and who misunderstood what he had done. It was in Johannesburg that he had found a Kallenbach, a Polak, a Miss Schlesien, and many another who had always helped him and had always cheered him and his countrymen. Johannesburg, therefore, had the holiest associations of all the holy associations that Mrs. Gandhi and he would carry back to India. And, as he already had said on many another platform, South Africa, next to India, would be the holiest land to him and to Mrs. Gandhi and to his children, for in spite of all the bitterness, it had given them those lifelong companions. It was in Johannesburg again that the European Committee had been formed, when Indians were going through the darkest stage in their history, presided over them, as it still was, by Mr. Oskill. It was last but not least Johannesburg that had given Valiama, that young girl whose picture rose before him even as he spoke, who had died to the cause of truth. Simple-minded in faith, she had not the knowledge that he had, and did not know what passive resistance was. She did not know what it was the community would gain, but she was simply taken up with unbounded enthusiasm for her people. Went to jail, came out of it a wreck, and within a few days died. It was in Johannesburg again that produced Nagapan and Narayan Sami, two lovely youths, hardly out of their teens, who also died. But both Mrs. Gandhi and he stood living before them. He and Mrs. Gandhi had worked in the limelight. Those others had worked behind the scenes, not knowing where they were going, except that this was what they were doing and was right and proper. And if any praise was due anywhere at all, it was due to those three who died. They had the name of Arbat Singh given to them. He, the speaker, had had the privilege of serving imprisonment with him. Arbat Singh was 75 years old. He was an ex-indentured Indian. And when he, the speaker, asked him why he had come there, that he had gone there to seek his grave, the brave man replied, "What does it matter? I know what you are fighting for. You have not to pay the £3 tax, but my fellow ex-indentured Indians have to pay that tax. And what more glorious death could I meet?" He had met that death in the jail at Durban. No wonder if passive resistance had fired and quickened the conscience of South Africa. The words that General Smuts so often emphasized still rang in his ears. He had said, "Gandhi, this time we want no misunderstanding. We want no mental or other reservations. Let all the cards be on the table. And I want to tell you, wherever you think that a particular passage or word does not read in accordance with your own reading." And it was so. That was the spirit in which he approached the negotiations. When he remembered General Smuts of a few years ago, when he told Lord Crewe that South Africa would not depart from its policy of racial distinction, that it was bound to retain that distinction, and that therefore the sting that lay in this immigration law would not be removed, many a friend, including Lord Hamptill, asked whether they could not for the time being suspend their activity. He had said no. If they did that, it would undermine his loyalty, and even though he might be the only person, he would still fight on. Lord Ampthill had congratulated him, and that great nobleman had never deserted the cause, even when it was at its lowest ebb, and they saw the result that day. They had not by any means to congratulate themselves on a victory gain. And now it was time for him to close his remarks and say a few words of farewell only. He did not know how he could express those words. The years of his life had been passed in South Africa. India, as his distinguished countryman Mr. Gokal had reminded him, had become a strange land to him. South Africa he knew, but not India. He did not know what impelled him to go to India, but he did know that the parting from them all, the parting from the European friends who had helped him through thick and thin, was a heavy blow, and one he was least able to bear. Yet he knew he had to part from them. He could not only say farewell, but ask them to give him their blessing, to pray for them that their heads might not be turned by the praise they had received, that they might still know how to do their duty to the best of their ability, that they might still learn that first, second, and last should be the approbation of their own conscience, and that then whatever might be due to them will follow in its own time. From The Souvenir of the Passive Resistance Movement in South Africa. Hope you enjoyed this narration and would appreciate very much if you would please subscribe and press the notification button for further postings. Your comments are very welcome. I'd also like to invite you to my Patreon channel, where you will find other interesting and diverse offerings. Thank you for your visit and hope you'll be back very soon. Bye.